Another thing, this was in Burr's presentation, he highlighted a lot about business process orchestration and flows. So this is an example of an editor. So when you want to actually, a service, SOA solutions are not necessarily about just calling a service and getting a response, but they're actually about defining business rules and doing things like transformations and doing things like process flows. So JBPM ships with this notion of a graphical process design, or GBT, and this is an example of it. And you saw more of that in Burr's presentation earlier. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but just realize that this is overall part of the SOA tooling suite that we offer in support of JBoss ESB and JBoss SOA P. So here's something new for Java 1. So previously, we used this transformation technology called SMOOCs. I don't know if anyone's here aware of that, but our native transformation technology is called SMOOCs. It's a separate project, but we have the SMOOCs core developers. They work at JBoss. It's actually developed outside of JBoss, but we use it in ESB. You can use XSLT if you want. You can use whatever you want. You can do POJO to POJO transformations. It's all there for you. You can do that. But our native transformation technology is SMOOCs. Well, SMOOCs has a configuration file, and guess what? It's written in XML, right? As most things tend to be these days. And we have this editor, this thing called what we call the SMOOC structural editor, which is very similar to the JBoss ESB editor in JBoss Tools 3. This is not in JBoss Tools 3, but you can go and download the alpha versions of JBoss Tools 3.1, and you find that this editor is actually very, very nice. It's very, very useful. It has a lot of context-sensitive help, wizards, and so on to help you along in defining your transformation data. So if you're really interested in this, we have a BOF tonight at 8:30, I believe it is. It's on data transformation with SMOOCs, and Tom Fenley, the SMOOCs project lead, is going to go through this in quite a bit of detail, and you get to see it live and talk to us about it. And we're really looking for a lot of feedback on this, because this is a new editor. It's out there, it's open source, so if you're interested in this, please stop by and let us know. Okay, so now I'm going to go into one area that's not typically understood or typically talked about in the context of SOA, is resource governance and the whole governance space. So when you start to define services in your enterprise, it's very easy, they grow like weeds. And before you know it, you have a service for everything. And you have some services which maybe allow people to do things which they shouldn't be able to do. Like, oh, I couldn't normally log into that application and do that, but now through this service that you've kindly given me, now I can go and do it. So you need a notion of governance, just like you have notions of IT governance. You need notions of SOA governance. And that's a space that we're beginning to produce stuff in. And one area that we've worked on is a product called JBoss BRMS, the Business Rules Management System, which is really about governance of business rules and so on. And that's being broadened out. That's the community project of that's called Governor. I'm going to show you how to interact with Governor out of the box in JBoss Tools 3. Governor is something you have to add on to the SOA platform at the moment, but it's really just a separate WAR file. You deploy it and you're good to go. You have a business rules repository. Okay, so the Governor has a separate perspective. This is really the easiest way to interact with it. On the left-hand side, we have an explorer for the Governor metadata repository. On the right, I have my standard project wizard, and then I have some other things like the resource history. So basically what this allows you to do is this allows you to have an enterprise repository with your golden resources in it, like business rules and so on, and allow you to pull them into Eclipse, much like you do with the source code control system, and then keep the two of them in sync and up to date. So if you change it, you can commit the changes back and update the version. You can update, you can compare versions and so on. And I'll show you some of that. And this is independent of the source code control system you use. So if you use an SVN or CVS or whatever you have, you can use this side by side. This doesn't take over your project like the team provider does in Eclipse. This is a complementary offering. So I can copy resources into my local space, and this is very much like importing resources using SVN. You go through and you choose a connection, and you choose what resources, and you choose where you want them to land, and you hit OK, and zap, they come across. So we have that in support of Governor. We have decorations, so when you have a resource that's actually governed, you get an icon decoration, you can see that, and you get a version stamp, and you get some date time information. So this is a visual representation that lets you know that this resource is also available in Governor, what the current version is. And this also could be in another SCM system as well. If you change it, By default, you get this angle bracket, which is sort of the greater than. So this resource is now greater than version 3. So this indicates a local dirty copy. And you can go and you can commit changes just like you would our source code control systems, or you can back the changes out. Pretty standard stuff, but this is new in the governance space. You also can take a look at the version history and see the comments. And I can actually go ahead and compare. So it uses the standard Eclipse comparison tools that all the team providers in Eclipse use. And you can go ahead and choose a version, and you get the standard editor, which lets you compare things. So this is a way that if you have a department, say, or an enterprise, and you define some business rules that you want all of your developers to use, but they need access to those rules because they need to test with them, they need to develop against them, you can go and pull those out of your repository. And of course, using security, you can allow certain people to update them, certain people not to, or you can allow developers to make changes and keep them so you can share. So it's like a source code control system, but it's not really for source code, it's for the golden masters of things like business rules and service contracts and data definitions and so on. So it's something that's slightly different than source code. And this is an area that emerges. There's a number of other solutions out there in the field for this. So that's really all I had. Thanks for hanging on to the end of this. But you see that we do actually have quite a bit of tooling already in JBoss tools. Now, there's a lot more that we're actually developing in a lot of spaces, and if you're interested in that, we can talk about that. But that's not really even in the community yet. So we're always interested in your feedback, the type of tools that you're interested in, and your feedback in the community and so on. And we appreciate your time here today. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. I'll be in the booth. I'll be around during the week. We have presentations. We have a BOF tonight. So let's talk. Thanks, everyone.